When it comes to the Kennedy assassination, I finally came to the conclusion that the reverse of Occam's razor is true. The most bizarre solution is probably the correct one. JFK's murder and its cover-up has been routinely exploited, as has everything else in the public arena, to further the nefarious aims of the false left-right paradigm. This was the tact taken by Oliver Stone's 1992 film JFK, which otherwise appeared to engage to a laudable degree in giving verity to some highly suppressed truths. But Oliver Stone is a Hollywood creature, and it is rather unlikely that he could get a car loan approved if he wasn't delivering some form of tribute to the beast, perhaps in the form of the revelation of the method. Stone keeps the story safely at the right-wing ideologues' power, lust, and greed level. Sure, a large segment of the public can buy into that. Power corrupts. Human nature. Makes sense. And you don't run the risk of too much ridicule. You can count on at least the tacit tolerance from your brothers and sisters on the left. But most crucial to the minions of ritual magic actually behind the deed in Dallas is providing new insight into their own shadowy workings and breathing new life into tropes and images seared into our unconscious dreaming minds of this dark day when everything changed. This is how Twilight language does its work, inching us toward the brave new world of the GTO, the global techno-occult, as they obediently act on behalf of their benefactors, the fallen and unclean spirits in rebellion against the Creator. And few devices serve this wretched band quite so succinctly as the revelation of the method, telling us what they are doing to us. And when we fail to react responsibly en masse, we fall under the same judgment as the Pharisees in John 9:41. Once our eyes have been opened, we are guilty if we do not act on what we have been shown. When most of us do nothing, free falling from impotence to amnesia, we abdicate our sovereignty. We feign blindness out of indolence, prejudice, willful ignorance, and fear. The fear of persecution, yes, but more immediately, the more wretched fear of ridicule and ostracization. Ridicule in the form of derisive cackling from those incapable of holding conversation about that over which they cackle. So they've told you what they're doing. It's on the news, in books and movies, on television shows and songs. If you fail to act, the consequences are on you. Even the enemy has to abide by certain contractual rules, and in the revelation of the method, he has fulfilled his obligation. Not only that, he and his cohorts convert your voluntary deception into occult power to be dispensed in future rituals enacted against the Almighty or upon his people. So even if you thus, even unintentionally, assist the enemy every day in his rebellion against God, are you really certain of your salvation? Just because you acknowledge that the Messiah is who he says he is? Even the demons acknowledge that much. In fact, you do sacrifice your if you do sacrifice your salvation, the enemy has achieved his ultimate goal, demonstrating to the Creator how unworthy you are of his creation. So the ultimate purpose of the JFK assassination is sorceress, control of the dreaming mind. Is sorceress, not was, as we acquiesce with our inert apathy day by day through the years. Sorcery to manipulate your subconscious. Author Adam Gorightly explains in James Shelby Downard's Mystical War the over-the-top, in-your-face method of the assassination. If the president was not safe from Masonic sorcery, None of us are. The rest of us realize at some level that we too may be just unprotected puppets. The splattering of his brains was captured on film for posterity. The message is we are all disposable, so we better not rock the boat, as I believe President Kennedy was programmed to do, or deliberately allowed to do, building a consensus at levels of the military-industrial complex and in the underworld that JFK had to go. In other words, sacrifice in the King Kill 33 ritual was planned long before he took office. Exactly 1 week later, the Beatles released their first #1 American hit single. That was the spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. One that would quickly morph into the dark anesthetic miasma of sex, drugs, rock and roll. Distractions by the boatload, MK Ultra style mind control on a massive scale, hatched at the Tavistock Institute, numbing and dumbing us down with our own shallow hedonism, providing us and driving us, prodding us onward to the zombie apocalypse on the other side of the hard rock candy mountain. In his introduction, Adam Gorightly muses grimly upon the Kennedy family's Gaelic name, Céanadaigh, which translates as ugly head or wounded head. Note that the Kennedy brothers were all killed by gunshot wounds to the head. Well, Ted Kennedy died of brain cancer. Even poison patriarch Joe Kennedy had a stroke. Is this a curse? Or the real-world ripplings whispered and chanted by the unclean fallen and the wizards of the GTO? The co-author of the King Kill 33 thesis was Shelby Downard. Downard claimed a lifelong battle with Masonic sorcery. He may have been an early victim of mind control practices that derived from occult rituals of secret societies engaged in psychological warfare. These earlier efforts laid the groundwork for the World War II mind control of the Nazis. I have often suspected that my own father may have fallen victim to this horrific abuse as a small child. In one dramatic episode of his conditioning, Downard was taken to the crossroads in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, to observe a Klan lynching. Like Charles Manson and Ernest Hemingway, he was forced to cross-dress. Crossroads are significant to ritual sex magic, which includes opposite-sex clothing and performing of bisexual acts termed crossroad rites. These crossroads were also places of human and animal sacrifice, the participants recognizing an existing relationship between fertility and death. Since ancient times, shrines have been built at the crossroads to the goddess of witchcraft, Hecate. This is the same goddess who, with her machine wheel, adorns the roof of the Riverside Courthouse, along with Athena, in the California county where I live, and whose power elite was briefly accused of ordering the child torture, rape, and death chronicled in the Angelina Jolie film The Changeling and based on the infamous 1930s chicken coop murders, which took place about 5 miles from my current location. The house still standing as an object of morbid curiosity on Halloween. Downard was further conditioned, he said, on Jekyll Island, Georgia. The island was purchased in 1866 by globalist bankers. It became a secret society hunt club in the early 1900s, including members of the elite Astor, Vanderbilt, and Morgan families. It was the initiation spot for the NWO's first phase, the secret 1918 meeting, which led to the creation of the Federal Reserve and the control of America's money by bankers from all over the world. A half-century later, the extremely exclusive Bilderberger meeting was held there in February 1967 and ushered in the satanic summer of love and sex and drug counter-Christ culture. The sex magic Downard observed as a child has roots in a form of Kabbalah, which is the major metaphysical tradition in alchemy. In alchemy, there is a morally neutral force, sort of like you see in Star Wars, pervading everything. It is composed of two opposite principles, unified by cosmic marriage in ritual magic. It manifests as matter and energy, masculine and feminine, male and female. Hence the potency of sex magic in their twisted belief. On Downard's 1919 trip there at age 6, he says to have witnessed Alexander Graham Bell, or one of his doubles, engaged in spermanosis fellatio. Bell was first a guest of the Hunt Club in 1913. By 1915, he had his own house there and engaged in techno-occult experiments, according to Downard, like teaching dogs to talk and breeding multi-nipple twin-bearing sheep. Holy cow. He says there is a miasma of mysticism permanent at the island. I don't doubt it. In Downard and Hoffman's King Kill 33 thesis, JFK was a scapegoat for sacrifice. With this macabre ritualism, there are patterns of symbolism culminating in the final making manifest of all that is hidden. The conspiracy paralleled the assassination with the ancient killing of the king fertility rite. In the original rites, the king's spilled blood ensured fertility of both crops and people. The ultimate design in killing President Kennedy was to bring about the slow decay and eventual ruin of the American spirit, so that it could drag the world into a global technocracy. The Warren Commission was loaded with high-level Freemasons. Earl Warren, Gerald Ford, a 33rd degree Mason, Allen Dulles. The only Catholic was Louisiana Congressman Hale Boggs, who initially concurred with the commission's findings, but later expressed doubts. He was soon to disappear in a plane over Alaska. Another Warren Commission member was Georgia Senator Richard B. Russell, a member of Georgia's Winder Lodge number 33, and a man who was pictured present with FDR shortly before he died in Warm Springs, Georgia. JFK and Oswald were both buried at a place called Arlington. JFK in the National Cemetery there, and Oswald in Arlington, Texas. Arlington is a word of deep Masonic significance dealing with sorcery and mysticism, with a hidden occult meaning pertaining to necromancy and the worship of the dead. There are Wizard of Oz connections in King Kill 33. Oswald equals Oz. The Hebrew letter Oz equals strength, divine strength needed in the killing of the king. Oswald was probably a pharmakos, a scapegoat, and he was killed by a man named Ruby. In The Wizard of Oz, the Ruby Slippers take Dorothy home and free her from Oz. The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland are said to be two of the major programs utilized in trauma-based mind control. The White Rabbit plays with time as Alice encounters him several times, only to find out later he is discovered to be en route to her own trial. We don't know the White Rabbit's name, but a rabbit, like his half-brother Mickey Mouse, was based on blackface minstrel characterization and named Oswald. Starting with Walt Disney, studios produced 27 Oswald the Lucky Rabbit shorts, commencing in 1927. In the occult, 27 is perceived as 3 times 9, 3 times 3 inverted sixes, a 666 reference. Oswald, voiced once at least by the child actor Mickey Rooney, in addition to others, ceased production after 11 years. In 1938, the year before Lee Harvey Oswald was born. The King Kill 33 language abides with us every day, and it can be encountered most anywhere. One example is on the Batman-themed television show Gotham, which ran from 2019 for 5 seasons. And the 3 people closest to the main character, Jim Gordon, in the first season are Lee, his girlfriend, Harvey, his police partner, and Oswald, his informer, who is going to become the Penguin. So there you have Lee, Harvey, Oswald. Excuse me. This final personage who becomes the Penguin is characterized by his trademark umbrella, a device conspicuously opened and closed in sunny Dealey Plaza by the now legendary Umbrella Man on the day of the assassination. It is also symbolic and affiliated with the Bat Cause and syringe-administered cure, the latter device sporting a component called a ferrule, making the umbrella a fitting symbol of the Jabberwocky. Not to mention the president who brought us that Jabberwocky at warp speed and has referred to himself as the Batman. Those tidbits of information, by the way, are courtesy of the Research and Holy Spirit Anointing of Casey Brown and his Enter the Stars YouTube channel. David Ferrie's name embedded the fairy tale motif into the assassination. Since he was in charge of transporting people to and from Dallas, he was like a ferry boatman. There is also one such at the River Styx or other mystical rivers crossing from the world of the living over to the world of the dead. Twilight language has a lot of wordplay with spooky subliminal messages. Ferry had alopecia. For hair and eyebrows, he wore pieces of a pasted-on mohair rug. It was strange for a man of Ferry's deep intelligence to wear something that made him look so bizarre and ridiculous. In author Go Rightly's words, a countenance of some freakish elemental conjured from a burbling cauldron. It's hard to imagine why Ferry would adorn himself so garishly unless he was driven to do so by something within himself or acting upon him. Alopecia equals the shearing of the sheep, willowing process, symbolic of separation from God. According to Casey Brown, Ferry's alibi to Jim Garrison about the day of the assassination was that he had gone to Texas to hunt geese, to be a hunter like Artemis, the twin sister of Apollo, and he is rumored to have flown people out of Dallas, which is similar to Apollo and his chariot in the sky. Researcher Lauren Coleman says that during Oswald's last weeks in New Orleans, he attended many ritualistic parties with David Ferrie, which involved animal sacrifice and blood drinking, as well as sexual magic activity. Garrison believed Clay Shaw was part of this sex magic fraternity. Ferrie, Shaw, and Oswald are alleged to have met in a CIA station house located in a New Orleans Masonic temple where they conspired the killing of the king. I sometimes wonder if this was the Jerusalem temple on 333 St. Charles that my father belonged to. This concludes the narration portion of Part 1 of JFK's King Kill 33. Part 2 will be up in a few days, and then we'll finish out the year, 1 year, and commence a new one with a look at Bob Dylan's JFK song on his latest album, the song entitled Murder Most Foul, and an overview by the most important book on my shelf, and it's a big shelf, Timothy Alberino's Birthright, The Coming Post-Human Apocalypse and the Usurpation of Adam's Dominion on Planet Earth. This is Gumbo Craig, and this is Walking Out of Babylon. All glory ever and always to the Most High God, and blessings upon all who choose his way. Shalom.